Thank you, Mr. Negi. Now I'm excited to talk about this subject, and as you talked about, that energy transition is almost a necessity, not a choice. And today, we have so many different opinions around it. So the theme I have picked up is there is a need for call for convergence. The more the world converges on the choices we make, the less we will waste capital. The less we will waste capital, the energy transition would be smoother. Otherwise, this energy transition will be very turbulent. Now, in order to go through this, I have a lot of slides, but I'll keep this story a bit short. Let's straightway go into the heart of it. We have seen that the oil demand has been increasing and increasing, but I think now we clearly know, as the world enters into the mobility space with electrification going forward, with renewable energy coming forward, you can see the green line, the red line, and bit of the yellow line. That is what it is telling, that energy demand total is going to go down. We have maybe another 5, 7, 10 years of peak demand still us. But the future is very clear. Maybe made in USA, made in China period, and now we are going into a made in renewables sort of a period. But the key thing is that why is that energy demand going down? We can clearly see on the chart on the right. This is the gasoline demand, which is in the cars, as well as the diesel demand, which is in the passenger vehicles. That demand is going down. So from roughly 100, we will go down to 72 million barrels by 2045. The picture on the side is a picture. I was in Dubai last week, and there was an OPEC, Energy Markets Forum. This is the picture from OPEC General Secretary General talking about demand. And if I okay, does it work? Okay, so if you look at this picture, this is the picture from OPEC. OPEC believe the demand will continue to grow, and from 100 we will actually go to 116 by 2045. So you can clearly see there is a big gap between the opinions. There is a big gap between different analysts in the market. We very much firmly believe in the strength of our analysis, and our strength of analysis really comes from deep understanding of the entire global energy system. So one key message is OPEC is certainly making profit, whereas a lot of the other side of the energy transition is driven by policy. I think my call is that all the research, all the analysis and technology changes we are doing, if they don't happen fast, this thing may actually come us and hurt us more than help us. So really the time is now to put best technology, best effort into that space and make it profitable and not just depend on subsidies and policies. So this is our CEO, who is an energy transition enthusiast, and we really like to look at the world in a very calibrated, consistent global energy system manner, and that's where we derive our insights and I would say the entire signals for the future. So one thing is very clear. This chart on the left shows how population has been increasing. In the last 25 years, we have added about almost 2.5 billion people on Earth. In the next 25 years, we will add another 2 billion people on Earth. And right now, we are at 1.5 degree temperature scenario. If everything goes as business as usual, we will be touching a 2.5, 2.7 degree scenario. And that we all know how catastrophic from a climate angle it will be. So in my view, there is no business as usual scenario here. So what's the scenario then? I think a lot of people debate about the numbers, but here is a clear picture that we have really eroded the entire global biomass and the forest cover which was there before the industrial era. So this is a clear sign that what has happened, even if we don't believe in the temperature numbers, the Earth's forest cover is really eroded. And we have eroded this cover because we have cleared the forest to take out something which is very valuable under the ground. So if that has happened, what does it mean from a temperature rise scenario? What it clearly means that we don't have a lot of time, we don't have a lot of budget to emit CO2. As you can see, we have, if you really want to keep the temperature at the same level, we can only emit 650 gigatons of CO2 in another 25, 35 years. But if everything goes as business as usual, we will end up emitting almost double, and that's where the temperature goes to 2.5, 2.7 degree scenario, and that is where the challenge lies. But let's look at where all of this energy is getting consumed. The energy is getting consumed in industry, in transport, in buildings, but very important to know that a lot of energy is actually wasted. A big part of the chart, which is the gray area, is all losses. We all know that when we drive a gasoline car, we only use 30% to move forward, 70% is heat. Same is for the diesel car. So in the current system of passenger traffic, we actually waste 70%, 60% of the energy. Where is this energy most of the times going? In heat and some work, but a lot energy is lost. So if we have to move towards carbon neutrality, we have to use a different kind of energy system, and that's where we can see that if we have to achieve those targets, solar, wind, biomass becomes very, very important. Otherwise, those targets are totally not achievable. Also, when we will use, let's say, an electric car versus a gasoline car, there is less wastage of heat because there is no heat getting generated. So in general, the drive is towards becoming more efficient in the way we do things. And if we become more efficient, these are the areas where we have to put capital, energy going forward. The only challenge is a lot of these things are not profitable compared to the oil, and the business has to mature up to become compatible, and and then I believe that these things will materialize. So I'll skip some charts, but just to show, I think you were mentioning, Mr. Negi, that how much CO2 is gone into different areas. So this is the 2023 snapshot of global emissions. But if I really look in this picture, we can clearly see a lot of these emissions are actually coming from the heat and how electricity is generated from coal, how electricity is generated from oil, how electricity is generated from gas. So a big part is in electricity and heat. And this is the area where the CO2 emissions can be reduced if we do solar, wind, batteries. And then, of course, we need to work on the transportation sector, and that's where the future fuel is the batteries and I would say more electrification of cars, and then later on maybe into trucks and buses, and those things will also come forward. Similarly, this is just a repeat on how multiple pathways are available, whether it is electrification, whether it is CCUS, which can help us capture the CO2 and reduce the carbon footprint and allow us to move towards net zero. Okay. Now, is it possible? I very much believe it's possible if we really want to do it in a scale. This is a picture of a big Abu Dhabi solar, 2 gigawatts. And if you really see in this picture, this looks big. And if you really take another look in this picture, it will look even more big. If the clicker works, I don't know. Yeah, so this is really happening. What we need is scale. And the scale is probably where India has to think about. And I think if my suggestion, as was asked I think India should really use its big size of the country and really think about the scale, and rather than and move beyond the pilot plant and small incremental thinking. Okay. Maybe you can. And this is in Australia, where we were talking of a solar plant which is 2 gigawatts. Now I'm showing you a big area in Australia which is even 50 gigawatts of a Australian green energy hub. So my key point is really the scale in this technology. This transition will matter, and if we only do small things, small steps towards, we will not really achieve much big, and that's where the OPEC oil demand of 116 will likely come true. So at this point of time, rather than going into more slides, maybe it's good to take some questions, because I probably have to also leave after my presentation, Mr. Negi. So let me give some time to some questions.
Yeah, I think we open the forum now for question answer. Any question from audience?
I give them one small question from my side.
Yeah.
You showed those huge giga sources of solar energy in the desert areas. So how do the surface of this be kept clean? Because if it gets sanded over, then you lose maybe 30-40% of the solar energy. So is that a problem?
Well, I'm not an expert in this area to give an answer, but I'm very sure that if somebody has built that, they have thought about it, and probably they have taken care. Otherwise, a scale and technology like this would, you are right, will not function and will not work.
I have heard of such situations in Rajasthan where they have these solar banks, and one of the problems is the sanding over of the surfaces. That seems
No.
to be an issue.
Thank you. No, good
Yeah.
question.
Rajasthan is, I mean, good for solar actually.
Yes, but then the sand,
Okay, okay.
we have to
Sand dunes and other thing.
clean everything.
I'm sure there must be some technology
One
find
small
out as
question,
well.
to you, Mr. Mukesh. You see, in Australia, what is the source for developing or creating hydrogen?
I have my hydrogen expert also sitting in the room here, so maybe I think Ashish, you can
Yeah.
answer that question. What is
What
the
is the
source
source
of
actually?
hydrogen in Australia?
Which train you are going for making hydrogen? Is it renewable? It is a conventional fossil fuel or otherwise?
All over the world, the ratio is that most of it is again green, and 20% of it is blue. But within green, in most of the places, we see a combination of solar and wind. So that is the best way to achieve the optimal levelized cost. So yeah.
The same thing in Australia. I mean,
Yes, it's a similar thing in Australia as well. It's got great solar and wind resources both.
and what's the cost coming up?
That's a difficult question, depending on which region of Australia you're getting to, but likely less than $5. Sorry, per kg.
Per kg.
kg.
$5.
Yeah. But again, if you go to a very larger scale, then those costs come down.
Okay. Any other question? Otherwise, Mr. Mukesh Sahdev has to leave actually.
Yeah, thank you very
Right.
much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have done great job.